Elaine Kub is our marketing analyst this week. Since 1995, the only year to exceed current U.S. condition ratings for corn or soybeans this late in the season is 2004. Farmers across the country hit record corn yields that harvest, a number that now sits second all time. Soybeans that season also reached a new mark, yielding more than 42 bushels per acre for the first time in history. Today, old crop corn is sitting comfortably below $4 a bushel, and old crop soybeans are spending time above $12. We talked with Elaine after the close Thursday afternoon. You spent some time traveling around eastern Nebraska, Iowa, and South Dakota. What do you think the crop looks like there?
Well, it's absolutely beautiful everywhere. I mean, you could be nitpicky and say that there are areas, certainly in eastern South Dakota, where they had the flooding this spring. There's some uneven areas. Even in Iowa, there's uneven spots in fields, but it's more than made up for by the incredible yield potential of the good stuff. You know, I was looking, the USDA's good to excellent ratings. This is not necessarily record high, the number of fields that are considered good or excellent, but the proportion that are excellent, not just good or excellent, but specifically excellent, is very high. I mean, there's just nothing to say. We have a beautiful crop, going to have a lot of yield. And expecting record yields in both corn and soybeans right now. Is there a point in this season where weather is not a concern and the trade feels like the crop has been made, at least at that point? I mean, I feel like corn right now is getting into pollination. There's not a whole lot else that could go too much wrong for the corn crop. There's areas in the western corn belt that are perhaps getting dry that you might have some small amount of concern for soybeans, but we've seen soybeans do really well with worse years than this, so we're probably looking at record yields no matter what happens at this point. The next
potential weather rally would come frost or harvest problems?
Yeah, and you know, you hear people talking about that to wait for a weather rally for this early frost, but it's July still, technically. I think it's totally inappropriate to even be talking about early frost yet, or certainly to be expecting the markets to be putting in risk premium about that yet.
So what should you be looking for if you still have corn in the bin, which the assumption I think generally is that there is still a decent amount of corn left in the bin?
Yeah, I think that at this point, selling corn is certainly not very appealing. Selling soybeans is probably not profitable. Depends on what your input costs were. It might be. So if you're willing to do it, and this is risky, certainly you don't have anything covered, rely on your crop insurance. If you have an 85% crop insurance coverage right now, you'd probably be looking at an indemnity payment just based on the price movement that has happened. But the other thing you can look forward to is fall. We may get an El Nino movement coming in that could have a wet harvest here in the U.S. that could get some sort of a bounce in the markets, but more importantly, it could spark a drought in South America. And then you'd have a real opportunity to have your stored grain being sold in December, January, February with some sort of a rally.
If you have enough storage left, right?
If you have enough storage left or are willing to put it in storage, yeah.
You spent a couple months in Brazil recently. What are their thoughts next year? Does it look like they're going to load up on soybean acres yet again?
It does, and the people that are selling them input costs, selling them seed, they're giving plans on that right now. They're definitely confirming that we're looking at another big soybean crop, abandoning more of the corn. They struggle to get the record corn yield. They have more disease pressure there. So certainly we're looking at another big soybean crop from them if they can avoid a drought or an El Nino effect.
Right, and the buyers, such as China, do they look willing to also buy from Brazil and keep playing that, you know, we'll buy from the U.S. after that harvest, and then we'll wait until Brazil, and then we'll wait, you know, kind of back and forth?
Well, the beauty right now is that China's been buying from the U.S., and it's because of the Brazil FOB prices at the port there are about 25 cents higher than we're seeing here. So the point is that Brazil's not overloaded. They're not trying to dump anything. They're being fairly conservative with what they're willing to sell, and that is bringing China to our door. And so that's a stabilizing factor in the markets. It's something that might keep you from being terribly bearish and seeing prices fall into the $9 something level. Maybe we're going to kind of bottom out here and coast along.
When you look to 2015, what would get either, you know, the investor or the farmer interested in selling at that price or a potential run there?
Yeah, investors are not bullish on grain of any kind, certainly not soybeans. They're net short in soybeans, which I think is probably a statistical arbitrage between soybeans and corn. We're seeing the November soybean contract at almost 3 times the price of the December corn, which is very, very unusual. So I think that might be part of that bearishness from the investors on soybeans. But the thing that would turn it around is if you got any sort of excitement in the outside markets, the dollar, oil, the stock market, nothing has really been happening there. So everybody's just on a status quo. And I think the commodity investors are waiting to see the effects of an El Nino, and other commodities might get their money first, your coffee, cocoa, things like that. But soybeans certainly and corn should also benefit from that if it develops.
Corn sitting comfortably below $4.
Yeah.
Any chance it reaches back above it?
Certainly there is a chance, but you'd need to have something major change. The better question is, how low could it go? And for a while I thought that there was no good reason for it to keep dropping because you had significant demand from ethanol in the feeders, but they're not obligated to pay any more for corn than they have to, so I guess there's really no natural bottom. We don't have LDP prices
What
anymore
about in soybeans? Is there a bottom there?
Again, you know, nobody has to pay anything more than they have to. I think they just have the competition between the South American markets and the U.S. and what China is willing to pay.